So today's web dev tip is another Codewars Coding challenge, and this one is all about a function that we used in a previous web dev tip. So I thought this was a good example just to show you how you can take one of the functions that we've previously looked at and put it into practice. So we're required for this particular task to create a function called take, and what it has is two arguments. It has an array that's passed in, and then this other argument is the number of items that we want to take from the array. So it's almost taking the first few items from the array as specified by this second argument. So it's a pretty easy challenge to solve. But as I say, this will be using one of the functions that we looked at in a previous web dev tip. And if you're not sure what that is, just by looking at the instructions for the actual challenge, you can see here there's a reference down here to the MDM documentation, which is for the slice method, which I'll put a link to the web dev tip where we covered this a few weeks ago. So all we need to do really is call the slice function on this array and then take the number of items that we want based on this argument that's passed in. So let's see what that might look like. So we're just going to return, because we need to return the array, the new array that we're going to be creating from the slice function. So array.slice, and we need to take the number of elements starting from the first position in the array. So we need to pass in 0 as the first argument to slice, because that's going to be the start of the array. And then we can just pass in the n value, which is the number of items that we want to take. And if we just use that as our function to start off with, and just click the test button here to run the tests. I think there's just one there at the bottom there that should work for us. And you can see in this output on the left hand side that the tests have now passed. So that seems to work pretty well for us. Of course, it's up to you as well, but you can also convert this into an arrow function as well. So we'll say take is a variable that is equal to an arrow function. And because we're just doing the one simple return, from this function we can just remove the parentheses as well, the curly braces, and put that all on one line, so it's a little bit neater. So I don't think there's any special cases in this particular challenge that we need to actually look at. It's just taking the first number of elements from the list or the array, depending on which language you're doing it in. So if we do that, it should run all of the tests for us, and yes, so they're all passing now for us. So as I say, that's quite a simple challenge to complete, and it's given you in the instructions the actual function that you should use, but hopefully it illustrates a bit of a practical example of when you might use one of the functions that we've looked at in our previous web dev tips, just to put them into context and how you might use them when you're creating your own functions. So that's it for today's tutorial. Make sure you stay tuned for more web dev tips.